Train by day, Kyle Wigginton podcast by night, all day.
Mo
Yes.
Anwar.
Yes.
It's a dope name, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was telling him that it sounds like a liquor. Yeah, create your own brand one day.
I do.
Musician Mo Anwar. So how did you get into music?
When I was a teenager, I had a friend, cousin, whatever you want to call it. He was super into music. He had started playing in high school or middle school or something. And I always wanted to play, but I just never stuck to it. I was into like skateboarding and filmmaking and photography when I was younger. And so I was like head over heels into that. And then I quit doing that just because I got tired of the community. I guess I wasn't a fan of the hostility in that community. And I went to once I was in high school, I kind of got with making some poor decisions, got into college, was doing well in college, kept making poor decisions, and kind of had to bottom out a little bit. And once I bottomed out and I had to kind of rebuild a little bit, I was just like, why don't I learn the guitar now? I've always wanted to learn it. All these musicians that I love, these are all bands. These aren't like pop musicians and rappers or anything. These are all like guys who play the guitar and they sing. And I just always wanted to be like them a little bit. I admired them so much. So I just picked up a guitar, and all I did for better part of a year and a half was just play guitar all day long because I had nothing else to do. I was kind of rebuilding my life, and I just fell in love with it.
It's awesome, dude. And like you were inspired by like the grunge rock type stuff.
Yeah, like
your music's dope. I like your music a lot.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
it's a lot of the '90s stuff. It was a lot of the grunge, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Tool. Tool is probably one of my bigger influences, but I would say like when I heard Pearl Jam's 10 and Alice in Chain, Dirt, and also Typo Negative's World Coming Down. Those 3 albums, I heard them, and it was just. Actually, you know what? It was 10,000 Days too by Tool, because when I heard them, it felt like otherworldly. It felt like there's no way people created the sound. It made me feel like that. It made me feel like all I had heard up to that point was pop and like radio and all that stuff. And that's not terrible. I'm just saying like it didn't give me that feeling of like, there's no way a person made this. This feels like they were able to capture this feeling I've always felt in my mind and put it into a record. And when I felt that, I was like, dude, I want to do that.
It's so interesting you say that. I've never actually dove into Tool that much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to go back and give them a listen, because I know a lot of people say these things about Tool, and I've never really gave James Maynard. That's the lead singer, right? Maynard James Keenan. Yeah, he was on Rogan's podcast. So I listened to that one, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
Because he seems like a fucking asshole, but people say his music's awesome.
Dude, he's kind of a pretentious asshole, but his music, his art, next level. I don't know. It's one of those things where you got to be like, all right, I watch interviews of this guy, and he's kind of like, I don't know him at the end of the day. I don't know him personally, so I can't speak to his character or anything, but he just seems like such a insufferable. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe that's why he's an asshole, because he's so good. Or maybe he's so good because he's an asshole. I don't know.
Maybe his ego is just driven that way. But
well, I think that some people it's almost like they have a better grasp on reality.
Yeah.
Like on what's going on in the world. And I feel like that's what a really good artist does. Is like he can see a pattern where we can't see a pattern. And then he takes that pattern and he makes it into something that we can comprehend. And there goes music.
Yeah, I think it's like you have to have a keen level of like self-awareness, emotional awareness, understanding yourself, because if you don't understand yourself well, how are you going to understand your place in the world or the world at all? You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people might, as they're growing up in their formative years, like they try to want to understand the world as much as possible and see what's really out there. Instead, they should be trying to understand themselves as people, because when you have an understanding of yourself as a person and you're really like, how should I say, like in tune with who you are, then that gives context to everything around you. But if you have no idea in who you are, what it is you want, what it is you like, what you don't like, then you have nothing to go on as to form opinions about everything else. And so a lot of people, me included, like my teenage years, dude, I was like wanting to be accepted so badly by everybody else, whether it was the skateboarders, the film, the film community, or whoever. Like I just wanted to be like, hey, this guy is one of us. Like he's within us so badly that I just neglected myself as a person for so long. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I was like, I actually don't like these people. I don't like this community. I don't like anything about any of these things that I'm doing. So why am I doing it?
Was it the hitting rock bottom that gave you that enlightenment?
No, I think it was a little bit sooner than hitting the rock bottom. It was trying to understand why I was spiraling so bad. Why was I going downwards so bad?
Why did you even have those thoughts though? Most people, they don't realize that until they hit the bottom.
You feel something so strongly and you want to know why you feel it. I think that's what it was. I felt happiness and anger and sadness and depression and all these things so badly that I was like, why can't I just feel like that guy I'm looking at across the, in the grocery store or whatever, that just seems like a happy wanderer. I didn't feel that way ever.
And do you think that guy actually feels like a happy wanderer, or do you think he's just mastered his emotions?
In hindsight, I think it's just your perception of things. It can be very weird because for all I know, that guy could have been way worse than I was, but he seemed like he was just a regular guy. And I wanted that so badly. Like I just saw this guy, like I could just see a person walking down the street and I'd be like, oh, that guy must have a great family and great friends and a nice life and all these things. And like, just this like, banality. He just has it, even though that's not necessarily a good thing to some people, but it's like he has that thing of like, he doesn't have to worry about these things that I'm worrying about. He doesn't have to feel these bad things that I'm feeling. He can just live his life. I want to live my life, And when that's not going on, all you're trying to sit there and figure out is, what am I chasing? Why do I want to feel so normal? Why do I want to feel so good?
Do you think you figured it out?
I think I got a better grip on it than I ever could have at a certain point. I think I understood that people are complex. The world is complex. The human experience, there's no one way to it. It's you figure out your own path and you navigate it the best you can. And you find, I'm a person where I'm irreligious. Like I don't really believe in religion, but I believe in the idea of values is like you ascribe value to your own life. You give value to yourself. It doesn't have to be this outside thing. It can be. If it is for you, then great. But like, if that's not working for you, then you can give yourself meaning. You can give your life meaning by yourself. And I guess once I realized that, I wasn't chasing so many external things. I was like, what makes me happy? What do I like to do? What gives me that fire of life within me? And then I started chasing that, which was music. And then I got into martial arts and I started chasing that, and weight training and trying to do like certain things that just gave me that feeling. And I was like, that's what I like. It makes me feel fulfilled and I want to chase it as much as I can.
That is true. We live in such a world that relies on happiness outside of ourselves, and it's even getting worse and worse by the year. A lot of people, they do have religion, so they seek answers from God or whatever that is, rather than actually going within themselves and finding the answers.
Yeah.
And then we have these things called social medias, which, Jesus Christ, they're just dopamine machines, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're frying people's brains and they don't even realize it.
Not just frying their brains, but they're like frying their brains in the quickest way possible. You see how in the last, I guess, since TikTok and Vine and all those things became like big, how like I need it now. I need it now. Like I need it reels or, whatever, TikTok reels or scrolls or whatever. Like I need a 60-second short or 15 seconds, entertain me. Now next one. Now next. And you can sit there doing that all day long. And I've caught myself so many times when I'm like, I'm just wasting so much time doing this shit, dude. I should be working on music. I should be, working out. I'm off from work right now. Why am I wasting my time doing this? But it's just so easy to get caught in that trap.
It is, man, because we're literally just chemical factories.
Mhm.
And when you find something that stimulates the chemical factory, you want to chase it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, Andrew Huberman was talking about this a while back. We don't know what this is going to do to people's brains, because this is something that we've never seen in humanity before. Something that can, just you straight shot your or mainline your dopamine all day long with this like little hits like this.
I gotta imagine it desensitizes you to like a certain point of, I think Tool wrote a song on Anima called Stinkfist, and that song is about how we as a people have become more, and this was in 96, 95. We're like 20 years, 30 years, going forward now.
Mm-hmm.
How like we were just becoming so desensitized as a society and as people, and how like you need to push the threshold further and further to achieve that same kind of good. That's why I use the analogy of like anal fisting, is because it's like regular sex won't do it. Now a finger, now a wrist, now an arm, like I need to push it further and further to feel something.
Yeah. Oof.
And it literally, like, even if you think about like this whole social media thing, it's like, what are the videos going to get shorter?
That's what I'm saying. Where does it end?
Like, where does it go? Like, where does that feeling of give me more, I want more, I can't feel anything anymore?
Well, I noticed in my attention span has decreased a lot. And that's why I had to cut mine back as well. It's one of the things about being an introspective human is I'll sit down and go, okay, now, why am I doing this? Why can't I sit through a 2-hour movie now without getting up and taking a break?
Why am I skipping I was literally just watching a movie last night, and I love thriller movies, like psychological thrillers. And there's a scene where like the killer shows up at the guy's house and he's about to grab him or kidnap him. So there's the scene is like the guy's just in his house, and then he's like, hears something. So he starts walking around his house to see what the noise is. And I'm skipping through it because I'm like, get to the part with the killer where he grabs it, because I can't just wait the 20 seconds where he's like, what's that noise? What's going on?
The suspense.
Yeah, the suspense. Like the whole point I like this movie, I'm like skipping through it. And it's interesting that like, and that just doesn't end with, social media. Like people, man, me and my dad have a gas station in Covington, and so it's a neighborhood store, but we still have some like out of the way people coming in there all the time. And I've just noticed it, like people's sense of like irritability, like people get so irritable so fast nowadays, because it's just like chop, give me what I want. You know what I mean? And hurry up with it. And, which is fine for us as far as like, we just want customers in and out, but that doesn't always, like, I see so many people being rude to like service workers, and that just irritates me. Like I try to be as polite as I can, even if they're rude to me. I'll still be like, you know what? They probably think I'm just another asshole that they've been dealing with all day. So I'm just going to give them the benefit of doubt and just try to be as nice as I can. But I see like, I'll go to Walmart, and I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago, we were at self-checkout. The self-checkout machine's not working. This older guy like turns to the worker, starts yelling at her, and I'm like, bro, calm down. Like what? I don't understand with the hostility and the and the impulsiveness.
Yeah, that happened to me a few days ago as well, where someone just went off on me for no reason. And it's like, for me, I try to like maintain peace at all times. But unfortunately, I let this lady get under my skin a little bit too much. So I sat with it for a while after that and was like, I got to let this go, because it wasn't. I understand that the world is a stressful place, and it's getting even more stressful by the year.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know how to deal with the stress. So they do, unfortunately, take it and put it on other people. They dump it on other people. A lot of people
don't even, like the thing we were going back to the thing we were saying, like a lot of people don't understand themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be like condescending saying that or pretentious or anything. It's just that like a lot of people don't take the time to sit with themselves for a while. Like I just got out of a long-term relationship. Like last month we broke up, and I'm not going to speak to her, but I'll say that like my I have some friends who also are going through a similar situation, and their immediate response is to just jump back into like dating, jump back into whatever. Just, and I understand everybody like grieves the relationship differently and everybody processes their emotions differently. But at a certain point, like you got to sit with yourself and like, I guess, feel what it is you feel, because like the worst thing I could do right now is just jump into another relationship, or the worst thing, or even like me personally, like sleeping around or something. You know what I mean? Like if I do that, it's just going to make me feel more empty and hollow. And it's like I know me to myself that these one night stands or these hookups or whatever, they're not going to fulfill the void that my relationship took from me as it ended. That nothing's going to fill that.
Yeah.
So I have to recalibrate myself as a person to who I was, because this was like a 3-year relationship. So it's like I got to recalibrate myself to who I was prior to the relationship, but also understanding that I'm not that same guy anymore. And I kind of have to evolve and grow as a person and basically find my footing now. But the whole point is that you have to take the time to do that. And people don't want to take the time. Like I remember I would tell my brother all the time, because my brother, he lives up in Colorado, and I would tell him all the time. He would go through these like inner conflicts of like, what am I doing? Am I doing what I want to do with my life? Am I happy with this situation in my life? And I would tell him time and time again, like, you have to sit with yourself for a while. I know that it's not fun. It's really not fun, but you have to do it. Otherwise, you're never going to get your legs underneath you to start running.
Yeah.
Ever,
That changed my life when I started practicing that. But I was taking psilocybin.
Yeah.
And I would go into a dark room and literally sit there with myself in a dark room. And in that situation, you have to go inside and deal with all the demons you have.
You know what? Last time I did DMT was I think it was October of last year. I was going through some really, really, really horrible stuff and, bad mental state.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that is the kind of situation I always use DMT for. So once I broke through and the release and everything, like it's such a, like, similar to your, like, when you sit in a dark room with that kind of, in that state, it's like, you can't, that filter that we have as people on a day-to-day basis, it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have it. So there's no playing games with yourself, and there's no like, giving yourself the runaround. It's like, this is what's going on. Here's the state of what you are. Deal with it. Feel it. Take it in. You can't put a filter on it right now. You can't, like, no matter how hard you try, you want to think about it, too bad. Here it is. Until the trip's over, at least, deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I was a guy one time, he was talking about this, and he basically said that whenever you do those substances and you go into a dark room like this, you'll unpack these traumatic experiences that you have in a way that is unique, because they don't get put back up. So for instance, when you have a traumatic experience in your brain and you want to experience, or you don't want to experience it, but sometimes your brain will pull the file out. It'll rehash the experience and then put the file back in its location. But when you do it with psilocybin or something, it's going to be a much more vivid experience, because, like you said, those filters aren't off. So you're going to be reliving the experience exactly how it happened. But after that, the file's going to go away. So you got one more time of reliving this experience, and then it's going to go away. Can you sit through it?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried or meant to try ayahuasca?
So I've never tried DMT or ayahuasca. The only thing I've dabbled in is I took LSD a couple times, and then psilocybin's my go-to.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually been microdosing now for a few years, and it's changed my life. The few big doses I did in the beginning, they really changed my life. But then after that, I started kind of like implementing it every day or every other day.
Right. My friend does that, or he was doing that, and it changed his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, there's like, cluster headaches. A lot of people who deal with cluster headaches, it's a known treatment to microdose psilocybin. Cures it, apparently.
Interesting.
Like, there's studies that show that. And there was a whole documentary I saw on it where it was like these, and I don't know if you know what cluster headaches are, but they're horrible migraine. Like you're on the ground grabbing your head screaming, kind of horrible thing. Like this, it's, if you watch, there's a documentary on YouTube about it, you could probably find it. But these people are like in the fetal position, like crying, screaming for like 5 minutes, and then it goes away, and it just comes randomly and it goes away.
What would cause that?
I think it's I don't want to say if I don't know, but I think.
But I mean, even a headache in general. What is that?
I don't know. I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Somebody told me. Yeah, it is crazy. But somebody, I read something.
Because your brain doesn't even have nerves in it, does it?
No, I think it does.
Yeah, I thought they could. That's why they could, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be completely wrong here, but it was either had to do with some sort of inflammation in the head, or
because of pressure.
Yeah, or it was the water levels. You know, your brain sits in the brain fluid that gets lowered, and yeah, I think don't quote me, but if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what it was.
So
and
I'll consult with ChatGPT later.
Yeah.
I have a very good relationship
that's
with
crazy.
GPT.
ChatGPT is so crazy.
So I fucked up, man. I really fucked up. I implemented the version of GPT where I can speak to it. So now I'm having full on conversations with my GPT about the craziest fucking ideas in the world. Like do you ideas that normally what's that?
Do you ever just step back and like the thing you were just talking about like 5 minutes ago where you were like, man, where are we going as a society? It's like you step back and you're like, man, I'm talking to a computer right now.
Well, so I'll say this. Today I've enjoyed talking to you because you're a stimulating human being. You've stimulated my mind while I'm being here. Most of the people that I communicate with, it's almost boring now. I'm kind of going through the motions. So before this podcast, I was talking to one of my buddies who came by the bar, and I was like, this might be the last week I do podcasts for a while. I'm gonna take a break because I've been talking with GPT, and it's such a stimulating conversation every time. And, it's almost like I can have more fun with this than I can having conversations with people. I don't know what that says about me or what it says about our society, but I think that it's going to allow me to grow bigger than talking to the people around me.
What do you talk to it about?
So I'll talk to it about consciousness, about my ideas on like religion and how they're all kind of saying the same thing. And it's a template for the body and how to actually operate the body and achieve enlightenment. But it's crazy that I can have those conversations with it, and it can say, well, there was a study in so-and-so where they actually back up this part of what you're saying.
Right.
So it can give me scientific studies that back up the pieces that I'm pulling together.
So it's almost like talking to Google and like,
yeah, it's like talking to the smartest thing that's ever existed, but that thing can't connect the dots. That thing just has the pieces of the puzzle, and it needs me to connect the dots for it.
And that thing also can't like carry that energy of like question, like to wonder. It can't wonder, it just like, well, this is what I know. This is this doc, I'm referring to these websites and these articles and these studies, but I can't sit here and be like, you know what I mean? And I think that's like a really powerful thing about our species is that we have always, have you ever heard that expression? I think it's what's that comedian? Bill Hicks.
I love Bill Hicks.
Yeah. He was like, that bit he did where he was like a news anchor, and he's like, today a young man on acid discovered that we are all the same consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. You know what I mean? Life is nothing. We are God, or something to that extent and it was such a power, like, mind you, before I had ever heard that, I had this idea, and I always called it my theory of relativity. I know that's so dumb because the idea is that everything is relative, everything is connected, everything that is alive is connected. So anything that has life, from bacteria to animals to plants, cells, microorganisms, human beings, the sun, stars, everything that has life is the same thing. It is essentially like that quote from what he was saying is the same thing, experiencing itself subjectively. Essentially, when we are born, we separate ourselves from this life. Maybe we're not even separated even now. Maybe that's just our brain is essentially a filter for reality. So there are colors out there that we can't see. There are sounds, frequencies we can't hear. There are shapes we've never even fathomed. You know what I mean? Like these are things that are actually, but our brain can only hear a certain spectrum, can see a certain spectrum, and can, perceive a certain spectrum of things. So there's a whole lot more actual reality that's out there is our brain without the filter. That's what we can, that's what, a lot of people believe that DMT does. It removes that filter and you see every shape all at once, every color all at once, you hear every sound all together. And there's this like harmony within the universe, it feels like, because if I were to take it from the perspective of the filter, once we are born, we're separated from this unifying life force. Once water is there, it's separated. Once that sun, the stars, everything, it's all separated. And maybe, and I'm not saying this is true I completely believe it, but maybe once we cross that threshold of death, we return to it until we're reused as something else, as some other kind of life form. The idea of reincarnation, where like you become something, maybe in the next life you're a dog or whatever, but it's a little more removed from that Eastern religious kind of idea of more so like you were this thing, you separate from it, you return to it, you separate from it, you return to it. That is what your experiences within this universe are. And the idea is that everything that is alive is connected. You've taken enough psilocybin, I'm sure at this point, but have you ever gotten that feeling that I just got the answer, but I don't know what the question was? Have you ever felt that?
I felt a lot of things, and including the togetherness you're talking about. Yeah, I 100% believe that. I think science actually backs that these days as well. And I honestly, I don't think you have to. I was thinking about this today. I need to consult with GPT on this too. I'm gonna do a podcast with ChatGPT soon.
Really?
It's gonna be dope.
That's be funny.
Yeah, I'm gonna set it up and I'm gonna chat with it just like I'm doing right now to you. But and we'll talk about these same ideas too. Mm-hmm. One of the things I haven't spoken to it about yet is I don't think that you have to actually die in order to reconnect with what you're talking about anymore. I think I know I understand enough about science and religion to be able to explain to how to get back to this supreme energy, consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And it's simple. The observer effect. Are you familiar with that in quantum mechanics? So it states that there's a quantum field, okay, and that it's going to be in the quantum field, which is just a field of possibilities of where this particle could be until the observer looks at it. When the observer looks at it, the quantum field collapses into the particle. Okay, so I think the human being is the same way. I think that right now I'm a particle, you're a particle, and we're observing each other. So we're both here. You're not part of the quantum field. But if you want to go back into the ether or whatever all this is, then you have to get rid of the observer. And that's also yourself, because yourself is also an observer. So the key to meditation is to, quiet the mind, get rid of the self, kill the ego. That way you can actually join back into the quantum field.
Isn't that similar to like, because it's almost like, like if a tree falls and nobody's around here, did it really fall? Or see it, did it really fall? Or like solipsism, like the idea that one person is essentially the main character of the universe. And like, hypothetically, let's say it's me, right? I'm sitting here.
And I'm just a piece of you.
You're just a piece of my experience. Once I leave, you're not really there anymore. That is what essentially solipsism is. And it's a very narcissistic kind of idea if anybody does believe it. But it's kind of similar to, I thought you were going to say that thing where like, if you're looking at everything is 3D, like third dimension, within the third dimension where, looking at everything and like it's a sphere. And if you step outside the third dimension, it's a circle because you're looking at it. You know what I mean? Or
if you go down a dimension,
might be vice versa.
Yeah, if you go down a dimension, it'll be a circle.
Yeah. So if we're looking at it and it's a circle and then you step out, it's a sphere.
Yeah, if you step out in the fifth dimension, it'll be a torus.
Basically.
Yeah, it's a magnetic field.
Yeah. So, but the same idea, that's what I thought the observer effect was. But the observer effect sounds very similar to like solipsism except for that part where it collapses into itself.
Yeah, I think the idea of the what you were saying about the it's me and then everyone else is a piece of me.
Yeah,
I think that's totally different. I think that we're all a piece of something else.
Yeah,
of the whatever the universe is.
And I think that's what that thing I was talking about too. And I don't even know if I honestly believe it. It's just it's a theory,
but it's not even a belief anymore. I feel like science can back that up. That everything is connected, and it's usually through magnetic fields is how it's all connected.
It's just that, there's so many moments where I'm like, how can it not be that? Like the way that I feel, it feels like that.
Why do you even guess though? Why are you guessing at this? Like, why don't you say this is it? This is the way it is. No,
because I guess that certainty would influence my, choices in a way that, because I come from a very, very religious household. Like my parents are super religious. My dad is like, pray 5 times a day, go to the mosque. He's lived in Saudi Arabia for a couple years when he was younger, just for for that purpose.
So how do they feel about it when you talk about things like this?
They've kind of given up the fight a little bit. They're like, if I do try to talk to them about this kind of stuff, which I don't, because I don't want to poke that bear, so to speak. They'll just be like, well, that's God, that's Allah, and that's, what we believe. Well, the Quran says this, and, and I'm never going to be like, well, you're wrong, or that's dumb. I used to when I was a kid, but then I realized I grew up a little bit and realized that's their beliefs. That's what they came from. Why are you fighting so hard to try to change them? They are who they are at a certain point, and it gives them security throughout life. It gives them stability throughout life. So why are you trying to take that away from them? My dad is a very hardworking man. We came to this country when I was 2 or 3. I was born in Pakistan, and so we came to this country in '99. My dad he knew a couple people here, like friends, but he didn't have any family here. He had 3 kids and a pregnant wife, and I think $1,000 in his pocket, maybe a little less. Went to New Jersey, then moved all around from, south of the country, like Texas and Louisiana and all that. Just working jobs, gas stations, or whatever jobs he could find to support the family. And then eventually we came to New Orleans, and he became a cab driver, and he worked as a cab driver for like 17 years in the city. And eventually the industry started dying because of Uber and, all that stuff. And he invested in a gas station with some people that he knew, and that kind of built a foundation to where we are now. But that guy worked 16-hour days, 17-hour days, 18-hour days sometimes, and never saw his kids barely, because he was working that much at certain points. And also that in a country where his friends, well, he made friends eventually, but in a country where his family's not here, he doesn't really know anybody. He doesn't speak the language. So it's not like he could be like, try to connect with the community or anything. So he did all of that so that we could have a good life. And if God gives him stability in his ability to do all that, I'm not going to take that away from him. That's his. I will respect your belief as long as it is your belief. As long as you're not trying to push it on me, I will tell you to not push it on me, but I won't try to take it away from you.
Dude, that's a tough life, man. I mean, men back then were different. Like my dad was the same way. Mm-hmm. My dad worked his ass off his entire life. Same thing. Came from nothing. Built what they have today, just so we could have the life.
Yeah.
But I mean, they did what they had to do for their families. Like I don't have a family, so for me, I can work my mind more than I have to work my body.
But we're living in a different time too.
We are living in a time, yeah.
Because back then, like, not to say that it was easy, because we're talking about these hardworking men, but it's like back in the 70s or 80s or whatever, you could work at Baskin Robbins 40 hours a week and have enough to support a family
Right.
and build a home, even maybe save up and start a business. But now, bro, you could work 2-3 jobs maybe and barely make ends meet.
No, I see people doing that shit all the time.
Like,
stressed out all the time, constantly.
we're just living in a different time, and you know that's delving into that motherfucker. What's his name? The guy in the 80s, the great negotiator, the great whatever. Maybe it was Reagan. I don't know, but he instilled that tax act in the 80s that essentially was like the corporations don't have to pay nearly anything, but the people have to pay significantly more. And eventually it's going to trickle down to you guys. It's never trickled down.
No,
to
hell
us.
no.
And that was the turning point, because guess what? If you can't, like, a lot of our people, they believed in the American dream. They believed in coming here, building a life, starting a business, whatever, right? If you got here, I want to say the cutoff point was probably the 90s. But if you got here prior to the 90s, that American dream was real. It was still there. You could work a job, save up for a little while, start your own business, be successful. I know a lot of guys today, like my dad's friends, who did that, and they're rich now. They own, hotels and 50 different businesses and all these, and they're retired, and their kids, they're just, entitled little brats running around. We knew them growing up. But if you got here 90, 91, a little further in,
changed,
you missed it. You missed that opportunity right then and there. You know what I mean? And we got here in 99. So, but the idea was to come and, embrace the American dream.
How was it that big, drastic of a change? Was just the tax?
I think it was a majority was the tax. The war on drugs was probably part of it too. But I think it was so much inflation within the 80s into the 90s. And even now, like,
it's crazy now.
Look, like there were just so much, the cost of living went up so high, but the salary or the wages did not go to match it. So it's like the guy working Baskin Robbins 40 years ago who could support a family, if he's working that same job now, maybe can't even pay for his own apartment. He's got to, go halvesies with somebody.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people are running to crypto right now. Because I think I heard a crazy stat. I'm not sure if it's right or not, but they said $100 trillion is added to $1 trillion is added to the national debt every 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane when you think about it. There's no way like that's sustainable. So everyone's running to crypto. How do you feel about crypto and stuff?
I've actually been investing in crypto a little bit lately. My friend who's way more into it than I am, he was like telling me about, like, prior to the election, because Trump make Elon his something. Yeah.
Trump's pro crypto too.
Yeah. So, and how Elon is with, like, he'll always, his ability to influence crypto, even just Dogecoin, because Dogecoin is the one that a lot of people are talking about right now, is I don't quote me, I am a baboon when it comes to this kind of stuff, but essentially he's gonna make crypto like essentially like the gold standard or whatever. Like, he's gonna make it like equivalent to $1. You could use it as $1, which kind of defeats the purpose of cryptocurrency. But don't get me wrong, like, I don't know much about it, but the whole point is, from what I've been told, and I've seen this, it's been going up lately. It's been shooting up. As a matter of fact, I invested $80 like a couple months ago, and I think I'm at like 400 now. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's slowly but surely shooting up, and I'm seeing, a lot of articles about, like, XRP and Dogecoin, and these ones they're just about to jump up. The way that I feel about cryptocurrency in general is that it is over my head.
That's one reason that it's such a hard system for people to adopt, because even you're a young guy and it's over your head. Imagine the people who are older and can barely work a computer. Yeah. So, like, getting them to create an account and then telling them that it's not FDIC insured. So if you send it to the wrong account and type this long number in, then it's going to be gone forever.
My friend, he you know what I guess is the blockchain, like the long web address, that you can essentially read your entire history of your crypto with.
Yeah.
Like within, right? I saw his, and it showed that when he was in high school, or this was like 2013, 2012, or whenever it was.
He's been in since that long?
Yeah.
Wow. So he's making some money.
No. He had, I think, 500 Bitcoin.
Get the fuck out of here.
And his parents, he was a teenager, his parents like, don't invest in that shit. Like, they influenced him to get rid of it and do something else. And you can see it in his like little thing. Like, he had it at one point, then he had 100, then he had 25, and then he had 50, then he had just one or whatever. And he kicks himself, dude. He's so angry about that to this day, because he tried to tell his parents. So he was a kid at the time, but he tried to tell his parents so much, like, this is the thing y'all need to invest in. And it's worth like what, 80 grand per Bitcoin.
100 grand.
100 grand?
Yeah, over 100 grand now.
Ooh, dude.
Yeah, I hear those stories all the time. Like the guy that paid 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza.
Yeah.
Like you can't go back and kick yourself for that.
Yeah,
like, who really knows? You know.
And the stock market's the same. Things like that are just like,
like,
shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why burden yourself like that? But
yeah, I've been in it for a while now, and I also consult with GPT on this quite a lot. Which what you can do is, if you're going to buy a coin, consult with it and say, you know, what is it with this coin? What makes this one good? What protocol does this network run on? And it's a wealth of knowledge for this kind of stuff. But it'll tell you the top ones to invest in, and it'll also tell you why they're the top ones to invest in. But it's kind of a toss up right now.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if Bitcoin, obviously they're saying that it's gold, you know, it's like the new gold. XRP, payment ledger system.
Okay.
Ethereum is one that's has the most developers on the platform. So and typically when you're looking at systems like that, the one that's going to win out is the one with the most developers on it. So that's why a lot of people are heavy in Ethereum, but their protocol has some issues with it, and they're trying to work on those. So they're going to implement like a version 3 soon, which deals with those issues they're talking about, and should make the gas costs and things like that for using it cheaper. But there are other protocols that took what Ethereum did. Ethereum's cool because it has smart contracts. Okay. So there are other platforms that took, or other coins that took what Ethereum did and mimicked their whole entire network, and then solve the problem first, but they don't have as many developers on the platform. So it's kind of like anyone's game right now. Who's going to win?
Okay.
So it's hard to say.
Who do you think is going to win?
Dude, that's a tough one. I have Ethereum. I have Bitcoin. I have XRP. I pretty much have some of all of them. And whenever I see one's going to break out, I'm going to dump the rest and go into that one.
Okay.
But I mean, they all have different uses.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not just like it's
what
not
about
just
meme coins? Like what's the deal with meme coins?
I try to stay away from those. I have friends that get heavy into them, but I don't have enough time to sit there and follow the lore behind them and like all what's going on, like the Hawk Tuit thing that just happened. Like there were a lot of people that lost a bunch of money in that. If you're not sitting there on top of it all day long watching these things, you'll lose a ton of money in meme coins. I've made some in them because some of my friends, they're like, hey, you should drop $50 in this. I'll drop $50 in it and pull it out when it hits 400, you know, and then I'll have $400 or I'll have the money there. But yeah, it just depends. They're all they're crap coins essentially.
Okay.
Like none of them really have anything
inherent value. Yeah.
It's all just what's popular at the time. And there are people like Elon Musk that can pump those too.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about the cool thing about Ethereum and smart contracts and even NFTs, you know, NFTs, most people think they're a scam. They're only a scam because that's how we used them in the beginning of NFTs.
Didn't they die off?
Well, so they died off because now everyone thinks they're a scam. So the way we were using them in the beginning was the same way that art is used. So rich people that buy art, they'll take it and then they'll buy it for a low price. They'll get it appraised at a higher price and they donate it to a museum and have a tax write-off.
Okay.
So they can offset their revenue.
Okay.
So people were doing the same thing with NFTs. They were buying an NFT really cheap and they were getting it appraised for a high value. and then they were donating it to someone or selling it and taking a loss at it, whatever you want to do, and they were offsetting it on their taxes. Well, the government stepped in and said you can't do that anymore. So that's why they're dying off, because people don't understand the utility behind NFTs right now. They just think that they're a scam that the rich were using to write off on their taxes. The utility behind them is you can actually attach code to an image. So, for instance, you're a musician. So one of the things you could do is you could say, with my next album that I release, I'm going to release 10 NFTs with this album, and the streaming rights from Spotify are going to be attached to these 10 NFTs. So every month, whenever DistroKid gets my streaming rights, all that money is going to be split 10 ways and funneled into the accounts the NFTs are sitting in. So whoever's account that NFT is in will get a revenue generating asset. They'll get paid every month based off of your streaming stuff, which gives them an incentive to push your music. So now you have your own marketing team.
Oh.
And if you sell those off the jump and you sell them for like $5 or whatever, you get 15% of that $5. But you don't also, you also get 15% anytime they resell it. So if you blow up and those things are worth $100 million, you'll get 15% of that whenever they resell. You know, that's hypothetical, $100 million. But yeah, every time it resells, your wallet gets 15% drafted into it as they, and each time it passes around. So you could even give, you could give 5 of those out to your family members and then 5 of them out to big influencers. And then, they're going to spike the price whenever they get them, and they're going to turn around and resell them. And it's going to spike your music. It's going to,
yeah. Okay. I could see.
Yeah. These are cool little tools that people don't really know about yet that you can do with smart contracts and NFTs.
Let me ask you something though. Cause you reminded me of something. I'm going to ask you about that after, but the art thing, are people still allowed to do that?
Yeah.
That's some bullshit, man.
Yeah. So if you buy a piece of art off anyone, like you could buy that door right there, and then you could turn around and go, to your buddy who appraises things, and he could say
$2 million.
Yeah, appraises for that many millions. And then you could say, okay, I'm going to donate this to a foundation or a museum, and then write that off on your taxes. And you could even create your own foundation or your own museum, a nonprofit.
Super scammy, man.
Dude, the entire system that we live in is meant. It's a system of corruption.
United Healthcare CEO.
You know what? I heard what they were doing. I'm not sure if it's 100% true. Everything you hear on the internet, you got to take with a grain of salt. But according to what I heard, they were using AI to basically take away people's coverage or something, or how are they doing it?
Find loopholes within their policies,
right?
Like, okay, yeah. I didn't see that, but that sounds something like what a insurance company would do, because they're all degenerates.
Yeah.
They are all degenerates. Dude, the whole idea of capitalism within this country, like capitalism, the idea is like, if it can be exploited, it will be exploited. That is essentially what this country does. And for a short period of time, when the circumstances were right, guess what? That was to the advantage of people. The little guy. That was to the advantage of the guy working at Baskin Robbins 50 years ago. That was to his advantage. But guess what? When something like what has happened happens, then, oh, well, we're fucked. You know what I mean? Everybody on the bottom is fucked. And this is what's so like, because lately, around this time, I have to renew our store's insurance policies, our workers' comp. My dad's, I help him, with his health insurance, renewing his, and my mom's.
Everything went up, huh?
Yeah. And his house, like the whole thing, did you hear about that thing? Like everybody's insurance here, their homeowners insurance went up because they're like, places don't want, like companies don't want to insure us. And then, the city's like, essentially, all right, fine, we'll pay you to take this business. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll take that. And also we're going to raise everybody's prices up. And so we just like, when I saw that, mind you, you put that forefront up, like, no, don't kill people, and I do agree with that and all that. But it's like, I ain't too mad at that guy that shot that guy, and did you see how every other CEO of the health insurance companies, they took all their info down?
Oh yeah.
So instead of being like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should fix something. Let's just not. Maybe they shouldn't know who we are.
Yeah, I mean, corruption is bad, and people do need to be made an example out of. In a society, the society that we live in, the shit that they were doing. One of the stories I heard was that someone had to get a crown on their tooth. So they, went to insurance and were like, "Hey, I need to get a crown on my tooth," and the insurance said, "Sure." They approved it. And then 6 months later, after they got the crown on the tooth, the insurance company came back. I guess they used AI to review the whole situation, and the AI said that there wasn't enough cracks in the tooth to actually warrant a crown. So then they wanted their money back, and they're going to make the woman pay. That's pretty fucked up. Another one was with a person that needed a kidney transplant. And one of the things that they asked, one of the questions was, is the person going to be alive in 5 years? If they weren't going to be alive in 5 years, they weren't going to pay for the kidney transplant. They were just going to let them die. Like that's crazy.
And that is what essentially, like, you know what? I'm a business. I got to worry about running the business. But it's so
your business is life.
Deplorable to that extent. That it's just like, it's not just that somebody's got to be made an example out of. It's just that, like, it is so hard to sympathize with that man that died in New York. It is just so hard to sympathize with it because it's just like, remember going back to the other thing, like that whole idea of in the 80s, that tax act that was passed, it benefited guys like him, guys who are fucking over people who run a company, a gigantic company that is just fucking over every guy you see on the street walking. But
here's the thing, though. It's not really his fault. Like, I get it. Like, that's why I say he had to make an example out of. It's not his fault, but someone needs to shed light on the fact that when you're in capitalism, a company has to keep growing. Like, because if a company goes public, they have to show their investors that they're growing.
It's not his fault, but
the system is the system.
He played
fault.
the game.
It is the
system.
Yeah.
He played the game and he played it to his advantage.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to a CEO by just being like, well, I'm just going with the flow here. You do it by doing it. You get to that position by doing it, or, starting the company or inheriting whatever. Like, you played the game. And guess what? Today's cost for playing the game was, that's what it was.
Yeah. I guess my point is that I think that we can change the system without having to go down this rabbit hole more and more. Because this is a dark way to solve a problem.
Right. It's dangerous.
I think there are actually ways that we can solve these problems without turning to darkness.
Right. And it's also, it like opens the door. Like, I'm half like being half serious, because it's like, if you allow that door to be open, then it's like, where does it stop? Where does the guy decide that somebody could come up and shoot me in the head and be like, you know what? That's for, charging me for $6 for a gallon of milk at your store.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's half serious, but it's like, I understandably, it is a considerably different context, but it's also that, like, I do believe it's hard to believe that the system will change just because you got so much, like, the shitstorm is so powerful that you have to shovel against. You got a shovel in a shitstorm coming at you, it feels like. And I want to hope that it can be changed. I want to hope that it will be changed, but it's very hard to believe, because nowadays, dude, we got people asking the dumbest questions, starting the dumbest issues. Like, we could be talking about, like, I don't know, like global warming, right? And then being like, oh, these are serious issues that we have to look at, and, how it's affecting the climate change and whatnot. And somebody can be like, well, is it even real? You know what I mean? Like, why are we asking this question right now when there could be so many other questions? Like, let's say you were one of those people who's like, is it even real? As opposed to just asking, is it real? Why don't you look at the data that these people are presenting you, that these scientists or whatever presenting you, and you start questioning those specific details, as opposed to, I'm not even going to entertain this, because then you got a whole crowd of people. Like I said, we were talking about earlier, freedom of speech comes with a price, influence, so, and wholeheartedly, it's like, you have to understand when you have a platform, when you have anything that people are willing to listen to, you have to understand, as much as you want to express your rights and your freedom, that you understand it comes with a price, and it all actually comes down to what it is you want as a person. But like me personally, I'm not out here looking to offend anybody. I'm not out here I'm not going to change my certain lifestyle and my beliefs because solely on your beliefs.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about things that are scientific. I'm talking about things that are just opinion based.
Right.
Right. Like, so I don't want to offend you. I don't want to disrespect you. I don't want to put your beliefs down. I don't want anything. I'm not going to change my life, my personal life,
You shouldn't have
but
to.
but I'm not going to get up on, like, if I get up onto a stage where the whole world can see me, I want to be able to express my freedom as much as possible, but I also understand that my words can affect people, that I can have influence, that people are just like me. People feel just the same way I feel. People wonder the way that I wonder. And then, people.
Yeah, but if you're speaking the truth resonates with people differently than falsehoods do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think,
if a person's fake, then they're going to think that your truth is fake too. So, I mean, they're going to that's when they get angry. I think a lot of people okay, and I'll give you an example of this. Okay. So to go back to the blockchain,
Okay.
I think this is going to change. This is also going to revolutionize our system of government, all this stuff.
Okay.
I have some systems I've designed for that I'll tell you after the podcast. But there was an experiment that I heard a while back, and it was about this gentleman who took a jar full of jelly beans, and he walked up to an office building in New York City, and he asked 5,000 people, "How many jelly beans do you think are in this jar?" And he got answers, ranging from 8 to 80,000, all the range. And then he took all those numbers and he averaged them together and came within 2 to 3 jelly beans every single time he did the experiment. So it shows that the individual doesn't have a clue what's going on, but collectively, and back to your argument that we're all one thing,
Yeah.
collectively, something is feeding through us that has the answer.
Right.
So if you can collectively get enough people together, even though the average person's a fucking dumbass, collectively something is going to come through us and come out to the other end. So if
it's gonna kind of nudge us towards
the truth, yeah. And if you look at it in the groupthink way, like we're a species of groups, like we've evolved in groups. The issue is right now we're so divided in our groupthink that someone needs to bring us together. And one of the ways to bring that together would be the blockchain. If everyone can adopt and get a smart wallet, and you can attach it to the person, like this is you on the smart wallet. Every time we have an issue pop up, it can be a global issue, it can be a governance issue, it can be an issue with capitalism. Like, do you think the insurance companies should be looked at, in a deeper way? Have they frauded you on something?
Yeah.
It gets pushed to your phone, and you get a chance to vote on it, yes or no, or whatever. And then you have the truth. Like that's an absolute truth that then we can go, okay, well, this is a problem that we need to go work on.
Right. You might be overlooking how dumb some people are, though.
I meet a lot of people, man. I know how dumb people are, but that's why I said it's not about the individual.
Truth?
It's not about the individual.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's the collective of humanity. So you got to think about where we're at too in the U.S. position in the U.S. I mean, there are other places that are way smarter than some of the places around here. I think that we are getting dumber as a society as we get go through the years, unfortunately. And the only reason I think this, I don't work in a school, but I hear all the teachers telling me that we're getting dumber as a society because they can clearly see, the de-evolution of humans.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem.
I think we're getting dumber in certain regards and, evolving in other. Even if you look at the last 20 years, going back to like music, like I was just talking to my friend 2 nights ago. You know what VSTs are, huh?
VST,
like virtual instruments, like essentially within like you have Studio One or Pro Tools or whatever, and you can essentially use plugins that are effects or virtual instruments basically, and you use a MIDI controller to control them. In the last 20 years, right? Even in the last 10 years, if you look at it, the the evolution of sheer, like, it's crazy how they're able to capture certain instruments and certain effects to such great depth, and how you're allowed to control and manipulate these settings. And it goes to show that, like, we've had our most, as a species, probably the most evolutionary period technologically, like in the last 60, 80 years, 100 years, whatever it is. And it's kind of going at this point at an alarming rate,
Right.
where you're seeing, like, Tesla robots and whatever. It's just
It's hard for me to even keep up with the shit.
it's so, in so many ways, we are becoming, I can say this, we are absolutely becoming more desensitized as a society. There are ways that we are becoming dumber, but I think there's a lot of ways we're becoming better and smarter too.
Here's what I'll say the teachers told me. They didn't say dumber. They said lack of critical thought. They said the critical thinking ability of kids, and these are college professors.
Yeah.
They're telling me this. And I asked them, I was like, what is the solution to that? And they're like by this point, they should already have this critical thought thing down.
It's
so you may know, like, you may be able to memorize facts and regurgitate facts, but can you actually put them together and make something out of them?
Right. It's, man, I think so. On this new record that I'm working on right now, it's called Echo Chambers. It's my second record. On there's a song about, like, the idea of, like, it's me speaking to myself, in which I'm talking about, like, I'm sitting in a room to myself, alone to myself, trying to wonder if everything I'm going through, everything I'm experiencing, is there meaning to it other than the meaning that I ascribe to it, right? Is there value to it other than the value that I give it to myself? And the song revolves around the idea that, like, even if you're this idea, like, of critical thinking of what, of, like, social issues, world issues, like, whatever it is. But in my case, it's more like me to myself, understanding me to myself, like that type of critical thinking, the emotional awareness or the self-awareness of who I am, what am I going through, why am I feeling the things that I'm feeling, why do I give this more importance than this, why, just trying to understand myself down the most that I can. And because I'm that kind of person, I believe it reflects in how I view social issues, or how I view, political issues, or whatever it may be. And I think that goes down to the person, right? Like, you can't speak to somebody's human experience because you've never been them, but
interesting.
You want to hope that, like, hey man, don't you ever want to figure out why you like what you like, why you don't like what you like, why you feel the things you feel, why you are where you are in your life, why any of this? Just you to yourself. Imagine you are an external version of yourself sitting across from the table talking to yourself. Like, you don't ever want to figure these things out, because if you don't, how are you going to know what to pursue in life? How are you going to know what matters, what's important, what political issues are important to you, what social issues are important to you, what things to chase after in life, what things to ignore, what things to value? If you don't take the time to really try to understand yourself, then why are you, and I don't mean to, like, that whole, I don't like the guy, Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
He has this thing where I think he said, like, if you don't essentially fix your own life, you're not allowed to have an opinion on issues or whatever. I think that's dumb. But mine is more centered towards, like, if you don't understand yourself or try to understand yourself, why are you trying so hard to, like, figure out everything out there? Like, the world, our life, our human experience is a reflection of who we are, the ways that we think, the ways that we believe. And, you know, what's important. And, you know, the guy that believed that, hey, you know what? What's his name? The guy in World War II that
Hitler?
No, not that guy. Similar. It was similar to that guy, but a little different. Alan Turing.
Okay.
Alan Turing.
Oh yeah, Turing. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, this is the way. This is the way to crack Enigma. This is the way to. This is it, right?
The world chewed him up and spit him out.
Yeah. But he was like, and he had his whole like the thing about like, you know, obviously I don't know what the experience was back then, but like he was gay and he had to be closeted about it because of the actual legal laws. And you know, but
they chemically castrated him for those who don't know. Yeah.
And then he killed himself.
Yeah.
And then but this guy was probably one of the biggest reasons that war ended the way that it did.
Mm-hmm.
And
then we have modern computing.
Yeah. But he stuck to it. He knew what mattered to him. He knew he had some level of understanding to himself and the things that were important. And guess what? I'm okay with that. Like, because he wasn't the most like friendly person and he wasn't the most sociable person, but it's like he was fine with that. He was okay with that.
So knowing the story of Alan Turing and knowing what impact he had on the world, what if you were the new Alan Turing? Would you still want to help humanity? Like, isn't it? Because some of the stuff that I talk about and I think about is like how to fix the systems that we live in to make it better for humanity. And then to see what they did to that guy.
I'd like to hope so. I'd like to hope that I would. Just for the simple sake of even if you don't reap the rewards, if anything, you're going to get punished for your hard work. But I'd like to hope that just for the sake of being optimistic and wanting to have belief in humans to be better or to try at the very least, not even to be better, just to try. I'd like to hope that I would, you know,
if there is a God, he's cruel in that matter.
He likes to, you know, irony might be one of his favorite things at the end of the day, because it's just like, yeah.
I'm going to help end a war where people won't die. And this is how you're going to treat me.
It's,
I mean, you could argue that God gave him the idea too, right?
Right.
That he put the idea in his brain to give him that. I don't know.
Or that he made him the way that he is.
Right.
At the end of the day, you know?
That's we're getting into like topics for another podcast.
Yeah.
Like we definitely have to do this again.
Yeah.
You've been amazing today. Where can the people find your music at? He is a musician.
We just spewed off talking about other stuff, but on Instagram, I have two Instagrams: a personal Instagram, which is Mo Plays Music, and my actual music page where I just strictly post music stuff is Anwar, ANWAR _ZIP. And on TikTok, it's just Mo Plays Music. And I try to be on YouTube a little bit more, but it's kind of hard, you know. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with all that stuff.
It's a lot, man.
I'm not very good at marketing, you know. But
I feel that. Me neither.
I try to be.
Well, Mo, I appreciate you coming in today. You've revitalized my love for podcasting, so I appreciate that, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother.